Hey guys, I hope you had a chance to read Chapter 1. If you haven't, you should. With this first video, I'm just going to go over the pattern and what it looks like. Okay. The first chapter that you read should have introduced you to the pattern. Before I even go into it, I just want to say, with this, it doesn't matter if it's doesn't matter what time frame you're using. This can be used on a minute chart all the way to a monthly chart. Once you notice the patterns, you'll see them everywhere, honestly. So it really doesn't make any difference what time frame you'd like to look at a chart. It also doesn't matter what software you use. I personally like to use MetaTrader because it's free and it's easy. That's about it. So this is the chart you're looking at right now is a MetaTrader chart. Okay. So with that being said, let's take a look at the pattern here. Okay. We got a nice 1, 2, 3 cell pattern right here. Here's the 1, here's the 2, and here's the 3. So let's examine this. Let's start with the bar number 2 here. Okay, bar number 2 should be the biggest, and clearly it is. Okay, so let's take a look and compare that to bar number 1. For this cell pattern, we have a higher high for bar number 1, and a lower high for bar number 2. Okay. Bar number 2 also it goes a lot lower than bar number 1, as you can see. Okay, so it never went any higher than bar number 1, and went a lot lower than bar number 1, and it also closed way below bar number 1. Okay, let's take a look at bar number 3 here. With bar number 3, we get a further continuation downward. See this? It went below bar number 2. See that? Okay. Also, even more importantly, bar number 3 never became close to bar number 1. See, this is the low of bar number 1 here. Here is the high of bar number 3 here. This is what I called in the book the black hole. Let me see if I can write it for you so it looks a little easier for you to see. See that? See that space there? That's the space we need. We need the low of bar number 1 and the high of bar number 3 not touching. The farther away they're at, the better off it is. Okay. So when you look at this pattern, it almost looks like a step ladder. See? Just keep going down each step. It's just a nice continuation downward move. Okay. So let's look at some other examples. All right, this is Euro-US on a 1-hour chart. Okay. Let's take a look here. We got the 1 bar, we got the 2 bar, and we got the 3 bar. Obvious, the 2 bar is by far the biggest. It's not even close, and that's the way it should be. As far as comparing it to the other bars, let's take a look here. For the buy, we need the bar number 2 to have a higher low than bar number 1, which it does for a little step there. You see that? Okay. Obviously, it closes much higher than bar number 1, and obviously it went a lot higher than bar number 1. So let's start looking at bar number 3. Okay, here's bar number 3. Comparing it to bar number 2, we see that it went higher than bar number 2. Further continuing our step. Okay. And between bar number 1 and bar number 3, a nice big gap. That black hole I keep talking about. Very nice. That's what we need. We need that space. Okay. Let's start looking at another example. This is a pound yen on a 30-minute chart. Here's our 1, 2, 3 pattern right over here. So we have bar number 1 over here. Let me move that over. I just realized you can't see that. Okay, here's bar number 1. Here's bar number 2. And here's bar number 3. Okay, bar number 2 is the largest. It's not the biggest out of all of them, but it's definitely the largest out of all of them. So that's important. Comparing it to bar number 1, obviously a much higher low than bar number 1. So we have a little step. And it closed much higher than bar number 1, and it went a lot higher than bar number 1. Compare that to bar number 3. Again, bar number 3 went a lot higher than bar number 1. Than bar number 2, excuse me. And comparing 3 to 1, There is the high bar number 1, and there is the low bar number 3. A nice black hole there. Just draw it so we could all see it. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. Pound franc here. This is on an hour chart. Here is a nice 1, 2, 3 cell pattern. Bar number 1, bar number 2, and bar number 3. Okay, we look at bar number 2 first. It definitely looks like the biggest bar out of the 3, so that's good. Let's compare that to bar number 1. Obviously, a lower low than bar number 1, so we have the little step. It went a lot lower than bar number 1, and it closed lower than bar number 1. Okay, let's start looking at bar number 3. Bar number 3 didn't have a major continuation downward, but it was enough, because it did go lower than bar number 2. You see that? Okay, and when that's okay, let's take a look at bar number 3 to compare to bar number 1. Nice big black hole there. Very nice. Nice gap. Let's draw it in so everybody... That wasn't very good. Try it again. There we go. Pretty obvious. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. Okay, we got the Aussie US. This is on a 1 hour chart. Alright. Bar number 1, bar number 2, and bar number 3. Alright. Obvious. Second bar, by far the biggest. That's always pretty when you see that. Let's compare now. Okay, so bar number 2 had a lower high than bar number 1 for a little step there. Just draw that so everybody sees what I'm talking about. Little step. Okay. And obviously it went lower than bar number 1, and it closed lower than bar number 1. All good signs. Let's take a look at number 3. Okay, bar number 3, a further continuation down. It moved lower than bar number 2. And when you compare that to bar number 1, obvious, nice black hole. Yep, perfect. Okay, so this is basically what I want you to do. I just want you to do a little back testing. Don't worry about what any of this means. I just want you to be able to understand the pattern. You should be able to spot it right away. If it takes you a while to get used to it, that's fine. Just take your time. What I basically want you to do is just so you can spot it a mile away. There is no hesitation. You can just see it. Okay? Go overkill on this. Make sure you understand it. Okay? Because that's important when we move on to chapter 2. Okay?